You are listening to WFHR. I'm Melissa Kaye, and joining me in the studio today is Wood County Board of Supervisors Chair Lance Pliml. Welcome, Lance.
Well, thank you very much. It's always great to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, and we want to thank Joe Bachman and the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for filming this interview. You can watch the video version of this interview on the city website, wirapids.gov, and also on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media's Facebook page and YouTube channel. So, Lance, we're recording this interview on Wednesday, November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving, and we woke up to snow this morning.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Not just snow, the wind was incredible. Yeah, you're blowing all up there. Tree branches are coming down. It's going to be interesting going into Thanksgiving, and it's kind of a shame it happens right for the holiday, but we knew it was coming.
We did, and the rain before definitely added to the level of trickiness out there.
I think I was speaking to some people in Monaco this morning. They're expecting a foot of snow, so I guess you got to look at the bright side. We're better than we could be.
Yes, that is true. So we're finally through the budget season for you. I know you mentioned this, that's a difficult time. The board voted to pass the budget on November 12th, but it wasn't unanimous. And Wood County has a budget of more than $157 million. Where were the sticking points, and what do you feel prompted the two no votes?
That's always a really great question. If I had to guess, and again, this is an assumption, I haven't had that conversation. When we put a budget together, obviously it has to work. It has to work for both the county to provide the programs that we're involved in. And by the way, on a $157 million budget, there's only about $25 to $30 million of that. That's any discretionary spending. The rest of it is all pass-through dollars, federal and state dollars to run programs that we're mandated to provide. I'm guessing the sticking point there was on employee wages. There were some people that thought the county staff should have a larger increase in salary. And I think the two that voted no would have liked to have seen that amended to add some additional dollars on the personnel costs. I think that was the only pushback there at all. And it still passed 17-2, I believe, was the final vote. So, almost unanimous, not quite. And I'm guessing they were hoping there'd be an amendment in regard to the wages. There was one, not as large of increases they would have liked to see. Again, that's assumption. I never question anybody. One of the comments I always make before I go in is, although I'm the board chair, I get one vote like everybody else. And you have to vote your heart and your conscience. And at the end of the day, I typically don't question somebody if they vote differently than I do. And if I would have lost that vote, I would have said, what did I not do in preparation to have convinced them that they should have voted the way I did?
Because a lot of these decisions are made in committees before they even get to the board, correct?
Yeah, generally all decisions are made in committee before you get there. You'll see that. I'm guessing, I should have the stats in front of me, but I'm guessing that 95% of the votes on the board floor are unanimous. And that's because it's been hashed out by not just one committee, but usually 2 or 3 committees. And so you know what direction it's going to go before you get there. And sometimes there's somebody, on a particular issue that just is, going to stick to their guns. And they're hoping for a different outcome, and they vote a different way. And I guess that's the beauty of, the democratic process. You get to vote that way, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But all in all, we put together, I think, a really good budget. The mill rate's actually coming down a little bit, although, it should over the next several years. We built a $100 million jail, roughly, a few years ago, for those of you who've driven by Wisconsin Rapids. And as we pay that debt off, obviously, that the mill rate should come down.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the resolutions that passed in that same meeting.
Good, because I hate talking about budgets. No.
Well, we had an increase for the oral health program offered by the county to help prevent dental issues in school-aged children. Can you tell me about this program and why it's a priority for Wood County?
Well, dental health, good dental health leads to a lot of positive outcomes. When we have a lack of that care, we see a lot of other health issues that are derived from that lack of care. So, this is a real push. And, one of the things we may talk about someday is the Federally Qualified Health Center, which, is going to deal with that. This area has basically been considered a dental desert. And, we just know that when that care occurs, it eliminates a lot of other problems, not only in youth, but adults with heart problems, other, cardiac issues. So it's a big issue. Oftentimes what you see in those increases are also grant dollars. It always amazes me that, you have to have amendments to budgets and resolutions to spend money. But we also have to have resolutions to accept money. So sometimes you see more money being spent. It's always kind of funny to me that anybody would vote no to take the money to run the program, but that happens. So that's one of those where it's just beneficial all the way across the board from, the youngest people in the area, to adulthood.
And if healthcare costs are high and watching them climb, that doesn't usually even include dental insurance. How unique is it for the county to provide this service?
I don't know that it's absolutely unique, but I can tell you our health department is, if you talk to anybody around the state, you'd find it's one of the best there is. I've actually had the secretary of the Department of Health, the secretary, say to me that our health director is her mentor. Face to face, we had that conversation. Sue Smith and her department just do an outstanding job. They go after every grant out there. They really push that, and like I said, we're at the cutting edge of everything going on in regard to not just dental health, but all of those programs out there where there's any dollars available, any programs that we might tap into. They're on top of that.
Mm-hmm. And is that the Healthy People Wood County?
It can be. I couldn't even start naming all of them. There's that. There's a housing task force that deal with other populations. There's our substance abuse groups. The money that was set aside for opioid abatement. Huge amounts of dollars, and every one of those has a task force attached to it to deal with issues.
And if people had questions about any of those and wanted to contact the department to see what is offered, how would they do that?
Well, the Department of Health is a good place to start. You just give them a call. All the information's on the website. You can find find their phone number. You can email them, however you want to get a hold of them, or our Human Services Department. A lot of those services kind of cross, and one or the other should be able to give you the information.
All right. Well, why don't we take a quick break here? You're listening to WFHR. I'm Melissa Kaye, talking with Lance Pliml, Chair of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. We'll be right back. You're listening to WFHR. I'm Melissa Kaye, here in the studio talking with Lance Pliml, Chair of the Wood County Board of Supervisors, and we're talking about the county budget that just passed. Now, Lance, another resolution that passed during that budget meeting authorized Wood County to seek funding for a cooperative tribal-led law enforcement program. What prompted this request?
That's a great question. And the funny part is because it's an annual request. I think it's one of those situations where it has to be done by resolution. That money is generally available every year to provide those extraordinary services. And it's just one of those things that comes along. It's not unique, but it has to be done by resolution. It's there's a number of those, whether it be those grants or snowmobile, ATV stuff. It just happens every year. And we talked about this off air a little bit. It's kind of ironic that we need to pass resolutions to accept dollars. I get that you'd have to pass budgets and resolutions to spend dollars, but when somebody's going to hand you something, you wouldn't necessarily think you have to vote on it, but you do. So it just allows us to do some extra work and enforcement out of those areas.
And which tribal lands are we talking about?
Well, in our area, the whole chunk is the predominant, tribe group, and they work so closely with us on whether it be law enforcement, whether it be through BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, for some of our road improvements in roads that lead to or out in those areas. They've been extremely cooperative, and we try to be as good of partners as we can with them on every one of those issues.
Okay. Though we just finished up the first year of Sarah Park being part of the county's park system. How was the usage during that first year?
It was fantastic. It's really interesting because we're not even a year in, obviously. I mean, we really took this over around May 1st, hoping we'd be open by Memorial Day, and we were able to do that. There were a lot of improvements that needed to occur, a lot of maintenance that had to occur before we even opened. Because over the years, the park had gone into somewhat, disrepair as they were looking for some changes going forward. And it was a perfect fit for Wood County and our Parks Department. So we got it up and running. Tremendous participation from our Parks Department and internally to get it, up and running, but also the usage. I won't say it exceeded, but it certainly met what our goals were. And with the waterfront available there, I assume that this will be one of our most used parks going forward. It was an unbelievable opportunity. When we look at expanding some of our other parks to the tune of, $2 or $3 million to add a few campsites or to make some improvements, and then we were able to acquire a whole new campground with all the facilities that were there, and then just need to upgrade some of those and make some changes. Extremely beneficial. I'm guessing that in a number of years, it will probably, on a percentage basis, be the park that is probably most used.
Because its location is unique compared to the other parks in Wood County.
Absolutely. I mean, we have water frontage at our other parks. I mean, you have Lake Dexter at Dexterville, and obviously Lake Wazeecha at Southwood County Park for the campers. But just the amount of water, the ability to get on the river up there and go, 15 miles upstream is incredible. And it was a great facility to begin with. And then, that was the Consolidated Employees Recreation Area, Sarah Park. Mm-hmm. And there's some requirements that it needed to be, have public access going forward. And the county seemed like the perfect partner. So we had some initial meetings with them. We met, the agreements were put together, and it's going to be an outstanding resource for the residents of Wood County. About half of our campsites are actually rented and used by county residents. So works out great.
And you talk about the great waterfront that it has, but from the highway side, it kind of pops up out of nowhere.
No, that's
their plan for better signage.
That is hilarious that you just said that, because I was driving back from Point with my wife probably a couple of days after we closed the park for the year, and we were driving by, and I know where the park is. I mean, I've lived here for 40 years, and I was talking to my wife, and I blew right by the entrance. And the fact that you said that, I said to her, we need some additional signage here to tell you that you're coming up to, and then eventually when it gets there. But I mean, that is just hilarious, because that's the first thing I did. I went by about a half a mile. I mean, I realized it right away, but I had to go up the road, turn around. I'm thinking, if I'd have been pulling a camper or something, this would not have been, quite as easy as it was. So we are actually working on that right now, both at the entryway and then kind of, warning signs, if you want to say. So along the highway in both directions says County Park 1 mile ahead. Yeah, it's so incredible that you brought that up, because we just had the conversation.
Well, so last month you mentioned the Edgewater project. Can you tell us what's going on with the care facility in Port Edwards?
Sure. We have a nursing home down there, and it seems ridiculous to me. Probably get somebody from the state's going to call us after I say something like this, but the county actually pays a bed tax, and we pay a bed tax for used and unused bed. So even if we don't have a bed that has a client in it, a resident, we're paying a tax for just having that bed. And yet we know the demographics of the state in its entirety, and certainly the area, are going to call for more nursing home beds in the future. And yet they charge us to have those available. So right now, to be more efficient fiscally, we're looking at turning one of those wings into more of a community-based residential facility than a nursing home type setup. So more of your assisted living type stuff, and that's going to be a cost. We're probably between $2 or $3 million, but believe it or not, as that rolls out, that's much more cost effective and profitable than it is to have the nursing home beds that aren't used. We also, by size, go into a different category, which allows us to get a little bit higher reimbursement rates from the Fed and the state, because many of those residents are funded through outside sources. So this is going to be a big project. It has not been approved yet. We're still in the stage where a plan's been rolled out. We've got some cost estimates. There's still a long way to go before we'd ever put shovels in the ground here. But I think we're moving that direction.
Okay. Well, let's take another quick break. You're listening to WFHR. I have Lance Pliml with me here and Joe Bachman from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. And we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to WFHR. I'm Melissa Kaye talking with Lance Pliml, and we're talking still about the county budget that just passed, but also let's move into the land that's between the courthouse and the new jail. That's been completely cleared out, and you can see all the way to the river now, which is such a big change. Now driving in that area is a little confusing. I personally got lost in the parking lot. But is there a plan for better parking, Lance?
There is. No, it's kind of funny because when you say you got lost, I drive around that block sometimes, and right now I say to myself, where exactly am I? Because you use all those buildings for reference. So, this plan was in the works for many, many years. And we finally, the jail part, the actual physical facility in and of itself is done. The inmates have been moved in for many months now. We're still finishing up some of the parking in the back for the sheriff's department where the old jail came down. Most of that will become just a grassy area, pervious instead of impervious. That's getting wrapped up as we move forward. Then the other part of that consideration, and one of the things we've had done over the years, is acquire some of the properties across the street from the courthouse because we knew we had to facilitate not just more parking, but better accessibility. A lot of people that come into the courthouse, some of them have ambulatory challenges, might just be age-related. And then, you see these young mothers carrying, a young child and pulling another one along by the hand and having them park a great distance from the entry to the courthouse is not easy. So in those long-term needs, and I want to really stress this, in great cooperation with the city, it's been phenomenal. Their finance committee starting there, the mayor, and then working through the various committees and the whole board. A master plan was put together how we're going to handle that downtown and make it more attractive, not just for the county, but for the city itself, and then for additional business development that probably occurs because it's a better looking area. So a number of buildings were taken down. The old health annex that you saw there, the old building that was most recently Four-Stool Short, the tavern there, a couple of the old law offices. Most of these buildings were in extremely bad repair to begin with. But the big plan was to take those areas at some point to vacate Market Street and to turn that into parking, which will really facilitate access to the courthouse. At the same time, the city, although nothing's etched in stone yet, but the plan is to continue to beautify that area along the river and make them more conducive to use, whether it be on a daily basis or for festivals, but things that make a downtown attractive. And there's other cities you've been to that have probably done similar projects. Eau Claire, I can think of, and a few others, where it really brings a lot of people into the downtown area. So they're looking at improving traffic flows. We're looking at improving the parking, bringing it up closer to the courthouse to facilitate the needs of those people that come in on a daily basis. We should have most of that done by the end of 2026. It is funny because some of that is not actually designated as parking yet, but as you said, they're parking kind of wherever you want. Cars parked in every different direction, but you can see that as they filled up some of those areas that it's a necessity. And I will say this, like I said, the city's cooperation has been great, but if you look at, what are the best maintained buildings generally in any city? It's the city buildings, the county buildings, and they tend to be fairly attractive with the landscaping and the other stuff. So we're hoping that creates an atmosphere where other businesses want to come into that area and develop. So it's great that when I sit in my office in the courthouse and now I look across and I can actually see the river block building and the river. It's a much more attractive look, and it'll be even better when it gets paved and the trees go in and everybody goes.
Are there any plans for those waterfront areas? Because there's that one now right there across from the old paper mill, and up a little further near the dam, there's a nice little park there as well.
Yeah, those are all city properties.
Okay.
And I'd be getting ahead of myself if I even tried to, unless, Matt, the mayor, unless he's sitting here telling you himself, I don't want to get, ahead of the city. But I think their plans generally are to continue to beautify to make that area more conducive to, larger gatherings and things of that nature. And I don't know when that would occur, but I think it would probably be somewhat similar to the timelines that the county's looking at. But, everything depends on typically grant funding and road and highway relocations, and oftentimes permissions you need from the state and other stakeholders to be able to do that. But it's a good project. And by the way, when people hear me say, jail project was $100 million, we actually came in under budget on the jail. But that doesn't include just that building. That includes those parking areas, heating and ventilation systems throughout the courthouse that were 70 years old that had never been touched. And, people often say, well, why didn't you do it along the way? Why didn't they do it 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Well, the answer is, I think from our county's perspective, is we've tried not to take dollars from the taxpayer until it's absolutely necessary. And not that you shouldn't, but most people don't go put a new battery in their car 3 years if it's still working. They wait till it doesn't. The problem is with heating, you can't wait till it completely doesn't, or we've got a problem. So a lot of the things that you're seeing done in this community, whether it be at the health centers, at the courthouse, is because those facilities are 70 years old.
So as you're working through the parking lot area or that master plan, are you working in coordination with the city on those, so that the city's future plan for those waterfront areas jive with your plans?
Yes, we're working with 100%. And those are along the river there. I mean, that's at their discretion what they do. I'll even mention names. Like I said, the mayor and the council have been extremely cooperative and supportive. Our director of planning and zoning, Jason Grunenberg, along with the city with Kyle Kearns and his group, the attorneys that work for both entities, they worked, hand in glove to get these things done. And it's been extremely cooperative. And if you listen to some of the other news stories, you've seen some of the other communities with the fights over, we could put it here, we can't put it there. We're going to argue, we're going to move it out of the city. And we don't have that. Knock on wood when I say it, but we're really lucky. So, we work in conjunction with, we don't tell them what to do. But again, when we do some of the parking projects we're doing, we have met with them to talk about how that's going to look and how that's going to be configured.
So that they can keep.
So they absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take another quick break. I've got a few more questions for you, Lance, and we'll come back in just a few minutes. You're listening to WFHR. I'm Melissa Kaye, talking with Lance Pliml, chair of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. We've been discussing some things going on in the county, and now let's move into a new project, though you've been working on this in the background for 2 to 3 years. What can you share with us, Lance, about the Federally Qualified Health Center?
Melissa, I appreciate you going down that road, because a lot of what we talked about and a lot of what we do is things that are absolutely required, or they just happen on an annual basis, or their maintenance to some extent. And the Federally Qualified Health Center is a new endeavor, although it's been being worked on for 2 to 3 years, because it requires a number of funding sources. And this probably came to fruition because we had a number of partners that stepped up. In one of the biggest, the Legacy Foundation. Mid-State Tech's been huge with working on programs that will help us in this area. Our health department, which I talked about at different times, which has been outstanding. And then we had ARPA dollars available, under the American Rescue Plan, which allowed us to allocate, a few $1 million to this project. And when we looked at when we were looking at ARPA dollars, we said, what would make the biggest impact on the community? And we did not want to spend, a lot of communities spent this on operational expenses. We said, that's not going to happen. I want something that 20 years from now or more, people look back and say, what did you do as a board to have a positive impact in this community? And so one of those, for instance, Sarah Park's a good example. We built a park, or we took it over. The Federally Qualified Health Center, in partnership with these other people, is going to be about a 24,000 square foot facility. It'll employ roughly 50 plus high paying professionals. And it's going to handle everything from primary care to substance abuse to behavioral issues. But maybe the most impacted community will be in dental care. Because as we've said before, this has been a dental desert. Some of the studies have shown that residents of the area have traveled in aggregate about 100,000 miles, just to access dental care. And it's so important to your overall health. So we're going to have a facility that's going to work oftentimes with, Medicaid, Medicare patients, but open to everybody. This is not strictly, a low-income, facility. It's going to handle all of these areas and all of these possibilities. So, it's a tremendous opportunity. And the cost, not only, like I said, a 24,000 square foot facility, but a cost of over $20 million. Located in Wisconsin Rapids. Right now, I don't know that a final location has been actually determined for sure, but discussion is kind of centered around, it's going to be in the area of the YMCA Boys and Girls Club. So that puts kind of right in the middle of the city, provides access from every direction, whether you're coming in north, south, east, or west. And we really want to see this happen. And Congressman Van Orden stepped up to the plate of this and been huge in bringing this forward. Senator Baldwin, partner, I always laugh, in county government, we don't have sides of the aisle. We're nonpartisan. Let's face it, in Madison and Washington, we don't have that cooperation always. But we've had tremendous cooperation, both sides of the aisle here. Those two working in tandem to bring this to the area because it was ascertained to be one of the greatest needs. When we looked at ARPA funding, besides saying we're not going to use it operations, said, what are the greatest needs within our community? This was one of them. Childcare was a huge one. Because it puts that second income earner, back into the system oftentimes. And I don't mean just childcare, but good childcare, reliable, safe. And so I said, how can we facilitate childcare? How can we handle some of these health issues? How can we increase some of the, Sarah Park might be an example, or Powers Bluff. How can we increase the recreational opportunities within the county? Because we know that draws tourism, which is one of the largest drivers of economic strength. When you have those facilities, you also have people that locate to the area. Housing, affordable housing, huge issue. So all of those came into play, and then we kind of ranked them, and this was at the top of the list. And when some of the spending cuts were made in Washington, this kind of got pushed aside, and we thought this isn't going to happen, and we're going to need to reallocate these dollars elsewhere. And then about a month ago, we got word that this is going to happen. So we're thrilled.
And what are the next steps then in moving this project forward?
There's probably a million steps, Shed. But the first step is to get the check from the federal government. The other dollars have been pledged, through the county or locally. Like I said, the Legacy Foundation, not just here, but they do so much in the community to make it better. It's phenomenal, and not always do they attach their name to it. It's kind of like we just do it, and we're not looking for accolades. We're just looking to make the community better. Once that is secure, I think you'll see shovels in the ground, and you'll see this project get started. All the renderings had been done, architectural plans, all those in anticipation of. But I think we're going to see that happen. And then, that construction process will take certainly minimally a year, once ground gets broken. But from a county's perspective, we got to get going on this project before the end of 2026. Okay. And that sounds a long way away, but keep in mind, it's Thanksgiving coming up here. And then Christmas right behind it, and we are into the new year, and I'm still writing 2024 on checks. So it's like I skipped 2025.
Oh, well, next week, there are several committee meetings scheduled. What are your main priorities as we wrap up the year and head into 2026?
And that's a loaded question. My prayers, it's kind of that 30,000-foot view. When you say priorities, how can we provide the best service to the residents of the county in the most affordable way possible? And there's certain expectations of what programs that we should provide or have to provide. So, if you said to me, what do we need to do? It's when we survey the community, it's maintain public safety. People want to know when they walk out of their house that they're going to come back and they're going to be safe. So public safety is a huge issue. We still have to address the, affordable housing. The child care issue has not gone away. We may have solved some of the health issues with the federally qualified health center, but those other ones exist. And then, the mayor had a conversation with me a while back, and then a phone call I got the other day, and that's addressing, a homeless issue or an underhoused issue or whatever the proper politically correct terminology is today. But I had a conversation with the superintendent the other day of schools, and I was not aware of the fact that we had an issue that was that big or broad. I don't want to sound cast, but if I'm immune to it, or I just don't see it, or I just don't drive around that late at night to notice. But it's a problem that's evolving. It's getting bigger. Part of that might be affordability of housing. But it's something I think we're going to have to address as we go forward.
Okay. And, well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today, Lance. Appreciate this. And I'm Melissa Kaye. You're listening to WFHR.
Thanks. Always my pleasure.